And hello, I am Ross Collette, and this is my YouTube channel. Please like and share and subscribe. I've been thinking today about many people going through so much heartache and grief in their own personal lives. Misfortune is one thing. Being deliberately mistreated is another thing. And yet I find many people know exactly what I'm talking about, especially when I tell the story of a young girl by the name of Hagar. Hagar was born a slave. She was a slave all of her life. We never knew of anything her ever being set free, but a slave of Abraham and Sarah. And as it was the custom back in those days, if a woman was barren, she could take her handmaid or her slave and give it to her husband to conceive a child, a surrogate child, one that she just took the place of the real mother. But when Hagar started to have a child and did have a child, all of a sudden they found out that they didn't want her. They wanted the child, but they didn't want her. And then finally they didn't even want the child. So they forced them both to leave. Abraham got up early one morning and prepared food and a container of water and strapped them on Hagar's shoulders, gave her a backpack, and sent them away. They went into the wilderness. They were living on the plains of Mamre, which is just south of the Dead Sea. Horrible, dry place. I don't know why Abram would want to even live there, but he did. I've been there, and there's no water anywhere. You can walk for miles. As a matter of fact, I did. I walked for miles and grew faint and passed out, and I thought I was dead. When a Bedou, one of the Arab mobile nomad people, came up and gave me some water and gave me a lump of salt to hold in my mouth. It revived me almost immediately. But I know how bad this area is. And Abraham, he sent her away with her son, and she wandered aimlessly in the wilderness of Beersheba. And when the water was gone, she put the boy in the shade of a bush, and she went and sat down by herself about 100 yards away, and she said, "I don't want to watch the boy die." And she burst into tears. That's Genesis 21, verses 14 and 15. And so she was in a bad way. I remember when my mom, my dad deserted me before I was born, and my mom was leading me by the hand, and we had relatives who would not even let us come. We were walking down this road and would not even let us come in and get a drink of water. And she burst into tears. But God heard the boys crying. And the angel of the Lord called to Hagar from heaven, "Hagar, what's wrong? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Go to him and comfort him, for I will make a great nation from his descendants." Wow. And then all of a sudden, this is Genesis 21:19, then God opened Hagar's eyes, and she saw a well full of water. She quickly filled her water container and gave the boy a drink. Now, the well had always been there, but she could not see it. She had to have a touch from God to open her eyes and let her see the provision that He had already made for her life. God's already made all the provisions you need, even if you find yourself in the wilderness of Beersheba, south of Mamre, in the worst part of, the Dead Sea is probably there's a reason they call it the Dead Sea. Probably one of the deadest places on earth, below sea level. And I've been there, and it's, the water has run into there over centuries, and it's the saltiest water there is. She couldn't go there and get a drink. But remember, God had already provided a well. But then God had to open her eyes to see it. I walked through that area looking for this well, and it's a difficult one to find, but when you find it, you're glad you got there. God is such a good God, and His mercies endure forever. He will not you need to read Deuteronomy chapter 10, verses 18 and 19. That God never forgets the hungry, never forgets the lonely, never forgets the fatherless and widows. God is always with you. God bless you. I am Ross Collette. Please like and share and subscribe. I leave you in the sweet graces and the tender mercies of our Lord.